So Trump goes to Saudi Arabia. He gets a king-like welcome, which they're no dummies. They know exactly what he loves and how to soften him up. And I mean, it worked. And I guess it's working both ways, because Trump is announcing major investments into the United States and even cooperation on defense spending with the Saudis now. He's claiming it's some $600 billion or possibly more. Others are suggesting it's less than that, but definitely there's been some investment. Here he is. Okay, but all of that to the side, because it's good to get money given to us by other countries. But Trump laid out his foreign policy vision, like once and for all, in a 40-minute speech that was well delivered and had the Saudis clapping for him over and over and over. Now, my pals over at Commentary, who've proudly described themselves as neocons, were not clapping. They were unhappy this morning as I listened to just a bit of their show, because I'm curious to see what their reaction is. Not happy. And Trump took direct aim at neocons and sort of talked about repeatedly, it's the dawn of a new day. And we are not going to be treating enemies as enemies just for old time's sake. We're going to reevaluate everyone, because what we want is prosperity and economic cooperation and no more chaos. And went on about how he doesn't like war. Here's a little bit to kick us off, SOT 22.
Yet I'm here today not merely to condemn the past chaos of Iran's leaders, but to offer them a new path, and a much better path toward a far better and more hopeful future. As I've shown repeatedly, I am willing to end past conflicts and forge new partnerships for a better and more stable world, even if our differences may be very profound, which obviously they are in the case of Iran. I have never believed in having permanent enemies. I am different than a lot of people think. I don't like permanent enemies, but sometimes you need enemies to do the job, and you have to do it right. Enemies get you motivated. In fact, some of the closest friends of the United States of America are nations we fought wars against in generations past, and now they're our friends and our allies.
Let me give you one more. SOT 24.
The transformations have been unbelievably remarkable. Before our eyes, a new generation of leaders is transcending the ancient conflicts of tired divisions of the past and forging a future where the Middle East is defined by commerce, not chaos, where it exports technology, not terrorism, and where people of different nations, religions, and creeds are building cities together, not bombing each other out of existence. We don't want that.
Okay, I lied. Let me just go through this, because I was setting it up, what his message was. So he follows up on that. No more bombing each other, right? Like, let's cooperate. Let's have cooperation and not chaos, and commerce and not chaos. SOT 26.
As I said in my inaugural address, my greatest hope is to be a peacemaker and to be a unifier. I don't like war. We have the greatest military, by the way, in the history of the world. You know, I rebuilt our military in my first 4 years and rebuilt it into the most powerful military there is. And you saw that when I knocked out ISIS in 3 weeks. People said it would take 4 years, 5 years. I did it. We did it in 3 weeks. Just days ago, my administration successfully brokered a historic ceasefire to stop the escalating violence between India and Pakistan. And I used trade to a large extent to do it. I said, fellas, come on, let's make a deal. Let's do some trading. Let's not trade nuclear missiles.
Classic Trump, the negotiator, because sees everything as a possible deal. That's been his approach domestically. It's been his approach to foreign policy. And last but not least, here is the shout out against the neocons, SOT 25.
The gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like those who spent trillions and trillions of dollars failing to develop Kabul, Baghdad, so many other cities. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves, the people that are right here, the people that have lived here all their lives, developing your own sovereign countries. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves.
That last one is so big, and to me is so right on. I have to say, like, I was almost standing on my feet cheering for it, because I feel like when I was on Fox News, all we did was cheerlead these wars, and kind of dismiss or express disdain for people who had serious questions about them, most of whom were Democrats. And in retrospect, and with the benefit of all this hindsight, that was wrong. Like, we cheerled ourselves right into 2 forever wars in which we expended countless lives, blood, and treasure. And for what? Now we have the benefit of hindsight to look back and say, for what? Yes, there was some good. ISIS is no more. And we didn't get attacked again domestically for 20 years. You cannot say that's nothing. But I think, like a lot of the troops who were over there, I have serious questions about whether any of it was worth it, or whether that thing should have ended when George W. Bush declared mission accomplished after the opening bombing campaign in Afghanistan, period. And not 20 more years, and not Iraq, and not all of that stuff. So to hear the sitting president, a Republican, right, 24 years later, I mean, truly, like, officially declare it a failure and say, we're going in a different direction. We cannot nation build. The greatest nations that have thrived over that time period have thrived thanks to their own ingenuity. Yes, America has supported Saudi Arabia in large measure, but he's saying thanks to yourselves, your desire to improve your community, not thanks to the great hand of America that came in and tried to impose democracy on you. And it's just, to me, like a before and after line where he's declared the past approach over and not successful. And it's him saying, this is the dawn of a new day. We're taking the world in a new direction. It says, the head of the greatest superpower on earth still, for now. What are your thoughts?
I think some of that is aspirational. The dawn of a new day. It's possible. Like, it's possible we can get a deal done with Iran, which would be great. But a lot of people have thought such things were possible in the past. So I think you're right to point out that this is kind of a needle scratch on American policy. And that also it is refreshing to hear someone say that, like, nation building didn't work. I do have questions about, of course, Trump can't just leave it there, right? He does name names. He named Biden in particular. And it is weird. I'm old enough to remember 9/11, that 15 of the 19 hijackers came from Saudi Arabia. They were
there is that.
It's not a small thing. The Wahhabist ideology or a strain of Islam is baked in Saudi Arabia. The family of bin Laden
but wait, can I just say,
out. Yeah.
I don't have my finger on the pulse of Saudi Arabia, I readily confess, but there have been reforms there. They really have been pushing a crackdown on jihadism over there and trying to send the message, the king and the crown prince, no more of that shit. Like, they are trying to turn a page into more of an economic-based society without so many radicals, festering the jihad in the ranks. But keep going.
That's true, and they are also still one of the most dictatorial regimes on the planet. They repeatedly come in the bottom 20, oftentimes the bottom 10 on people who measure such stuff.
Okay.
And that's not.
Yes.
I don't want us to bomb them. I don't want us. No.
But wait, this is an important point, because this is another before and after moment pivot point, because one of the reasons we got ourselves involved in so many conflicts around the world is because we have approached the world as, we are this superpower and we know better. We will be the arbiter of who's committing human rights violations. And frankly, we haven't been wrong. In most of these instances, we're totally right. It's not like the Chinese Uyghurs are having a great life and we should just look the other way, though we are, right? So, like, there are real human rights violations happening in other countries. But Trump also offered a new entry point on thinking about that. Here it is in SOT 22B.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. They loved using our very powerful military, and now it's really the most powerful it's ever been. We just are getting a budget approved, $1 trillion, highest budget we've ever had in history for military, $1 trillion. And we're getting the greatest missiles, the greatest weapons. And, I hate to do it, but you have to do it because we believe in peace through strength. You have to have the strength, otherwise bad things could happen. But hopefully we'll never have to use any of those weapons. I believe it is God's job to sit in judgment, my job to defend America, and to promote the fundamental interest of stability, prosperity, and peace. That's what I really want to do.
So I really believe this. I'll give you the floor, but I just want to say one other thing. I really believe this because Trump came under fire for doing deals with Saudi Arabia and being open to Saudi Arabia after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, American reporter. And the messaging back from the administration at the time was basically like, we don't love it, okay? We don't love it, but we actually need to get along with them for all sorts of reasons, not least of which is we have a mutual foe, and that's Iran. And, like Trump all along is the deal maker. He looks and he's like, it's not great. I don't love it, but it's more important to me that at the 30,000 foot level, we're getting along with them because they can be helpful to the United States, and not getting along with them is too big a disaster. Okay, now I'm done. Go ahead.
I wish that he would have put it like that, Megyn. Instead, he says, you are great. And the Crown Prince, super great, one of the greatest men I've ever seen, blows smoke up his skirt. And I don't like that as an American. I just don't, especially at a time when you're praising their record and their friendship, and you are also acting kind of like a dick to Denmark, which is an actual ally, because we want Greenland for some reason. You're referring to Canada as the 51st state. So yeah, we're going to be totally friends with everybody, and we might act like a jerk if you are in our hemisphere and in our sphere of interest. So of course it's going to be inconsistent. I loved his last line, and you rightly pointed out that, let God sit in judgment. My job is to protect the United States. That is the national interest. That is the job of the president. And I think too many presidents, and he's right to point to this out, as are you. And I would just point out that libertarians are, in addition to Democrats, have been skeptical of many of those wars. Engagements.
And I like the libertarians better, so I shouldn't have left them off the list.
There's not many. Anyways. But
I'm the one.
Saudi Arabia has always been skilled for 80 years in a bipartisan way, though tilting more towards Republicans, of inserting themselves into American national interests, whether they need to be there or not. So they're hosting the Ukraine-Russia talks. Do they have a direct interest in that? Not really, but they know that Trump cares about that. And I think you're also right. And I think this is very underrated about Donald Trump. I think he is very sincere about wanting his legacy to be as a peacemaker. I think he sincerely has a revulsion towards war, and people who are like to dismiss Donald Trump, and I criticize him every waking hour of my life, in my head at least, they underrate that. He is sincere about that, whether he's going about it the right way, whether he's going to lead to that vision that he sketches out. Completely different question, but it is interesting, and we should take, I think, him a little bit at his word, because it's consistent with what Marco Rubio told you the first week of this presidency, and what the United States foreign policy wing has been doing in the second Trump administration.
You guys remember when Hillary Clinton tried to press that big reset button over in Russia, and it was spelled wrong? And it was a disaster. It was a nightmare. She was Barack Obama's Secretary of State, and she completely fumbled it. They were looking for a reset with the Russians, like, let's be friends again. That's what this is, only it's sincere, and it has the potential to actually be effective. I mean, Trump's basically saying, can we just get along? Like, literally saying it to everybody, like Iran. Like, we don't want to bomb you. We will totally bomb you. But we have this. Here's a little bit of it in SOT 23.
Iran can have a much brighter future, but will never allow America and its allies to be threatened with terrorism or nuclear attack. The choice is theirs to make. We really want them to be a successful country. We want them to be a wonderful, safe, great country, but they cannot have a nuclear weapon. This is an offer that will not last forever. The time is right now for them to choose. Right now, we don't have a lot of time to wait.
So he's like, let Iran, we can get along. He lifted the sanctions on Syria. He announced that yesterday, which is big, saying we're going to try to help you succeed. Now, you who have taken over for Bashar al-Assad, you with like weird al-Qaeda background or terrorist backgrounds. But you know what? Let's give you a chance and see how you can do. He's, trying to foster peace between Ukraine and Russia, way more so than the last administration. He's trying to foster peace in Israel and Gaza, like working tirelessly through Witkoff and others to try to get those two sides to come to the table. He did. The United States and Trump in particular was very instrumental in settling, for now, the India-Pakistan war that started a couple of days ago. He's bringing home hostages, American hostages from country after country. I mean, Trump truly, like he is devoted to finding peace in the world and to saying, I know these people have done awful things. It's 2025. We're turning the page. We're willing to give you kind of a pass, a bye, without blessing it, to try to go forward in a better way, to try to say you could be business partners with the hottest ticket in town, the United States of America. We'll do business with you. We'll help your economy get better. We'll help you have skyscrapers like they have in Riyadh. But, you're going to have to back off the killing all the Jews thing and the terrorist thing. And we'll see whether that's cool with some of these actors. But to me, it's so refreshing to hear somebody state the mission as like an actual reset and the thought of like possibilities.
I mean, the words are fine. I mean, the words are good. I think they're slightly naive in some places and they're slightly aspirational, as Matt said, in others. But, I'll say a couple good things first and not be entirely negative. But, the Abraham Accords was an enormous success. And it actually managed to kind of hold through October 7th, which was what a lot of people who care about the region were worried about. And so, giving him credit for that in that lasting success is something that no one was willing to do the first term, and most people forget about now. But what a lot of this stuff is contingent upon is, I think that it's also mostly true that, people don't love war. There are some, I know that there's this idea of that these bloodthirsty warmongers, but I think by and large, that's not the case. Yeah, there's John Bolton. Donald Trump, of course, hired John Bolton, but which was a weird thing. And then also, he's, you're talking about the evolution of politics. He's talking about this Iran deal and praising this Iran deal, the potential of this Iran deal, which most of the observers of this stuff and the JCPOA basically say pretty much the same thing, which, very similar. And he called the Obama deal the worst deal in American history. So I think he's probably moved on a lot of these issues as his son has moved on a lot of these issues.
I mentioned John Bolton, who, yes, worked for Trump for a short time, but this is a blatant condemnation of the Bush administration. It's Donald Rumsfeld, it's Dick Cheney, it's Condoleezza Rice, and it's John Bolton. It is all of them, Colin Powell too, on the coals without calling them out by name, saying that era is done. And Trump's felt it for a long time. He was very critical of the war in Iraq. It's one of the main things he was saying when he first ran about how wrong that war was. And he was saying it at the time. He said it on Fox and Friends. He said it elsewhere. Like, he's had this general aversion to the knee-jerk march toward war for, I think, his whole life.
No, I don't doubt that. And I think that, what he did in 2016 when it came to Iraq was actually open that lane up for people to criticize it. And actually now to say the opposite of that would be surprising to hear a Republican say on stage or on a debate stage. He was the first one to do it. And then everyone kind of followed suit after it was like, okay, here's a signal that part is gone.
This July, speaking of resets, there's a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio. This bloc of emerging superpowers, including China, Russia, India, and Iran, are meeting with the goal of displacing the U.S. dollar as the global currency. They're calling this the Rio Reset. As BRICS nations push forward with their plans, some worry global demand for U.S. dollars will decrease, bringing down the value of dollars in your savings. While this transition will not happen overnight, the Rio Reset could mark a pivotal moment. So learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting MK to the number 989898. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.